Welcome to the Life, Love, Everything podcast. I am your host, Tasmin Bota. Today, I am once again fangirling really hard. I feel like our guest today actually does not need any introduction, but for the sake of our listeners outside of South Africa, I shall introduce our guest. She is a wife, a mom, a medical doctor, keynote speaker, health activist, and teenage pregnancy prevention advocate. Everybody, please welcome the one and only Dr. Taz Emran Thomas. Yes, she's a wifey now. Or as you know and love her here in SA, the people's doctor. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you so much for having me. That introduction was very intense. I was listening to it and I was like, is she talking about me? I'm just the people's doctor, Dr. Taz. So if people can remember anything, just Dr. Taz is good, but I love the introduction. You made me sound very important. So thank you. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
You absolutely are very important. And actually, I was telling you before we started recording, I am quite the medical professional fangirl. So I am in my elements at the moment with us doing this podcast. So thank you so much. I wanted us
Thank you
to
so much
go
for having me.
back. I wanted us to go back to the very beginning, to when we all came to hear about you and how you actually ended up becoming the people's doctor. Do you mind sharing a bit about that with us?
No, of course, I love this story. So I've got, as you know, a lot of stories. So I'm going to try to stick to this one and not be like, oh, can I take you back to 1993? So let me stick to this specific one. So not graduated, sorry. I was in my sixth year of medical school. I had written my final exam. I was excited that I had passed. Well, we didn't get our results yet, but I'd known at that point, like, look, I wrote an amazing exam. Obviously, I passed. So after my final exam, I got a call from a university, my university at that point. And they told me, or rather informed me, that I had an outstanding balance on my fee statement. And it didn't make sense because at that point I was under a foundation and I had a sponsorship. So I couldn't understand what they meant when they said I have outstanding fees. So I take it lightly and I was like, it can't be that much because I've been on this scholarship for 3 years. Maybe it's like a few hundred rands.
Mhm.
Girl, when I opened that fee statement, I've never seen so many zeros in my life.
Oh
Ah,
my
I
God.
was like, no, you don't even understand. I checked my student number. I logged in again. I checked my ID number. I was like, this is a scam. Something's going on here. It was 500,000 rand.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I was like, there's no way. So the whole story is when I actually went back on my fee statement from fourth year, fifth year, and sixth year, none of my tuition fees were paid by the scholarship, and none of my res fees were paid. So I then called up my sponsor and said, yo, dude, like, what's this about?
Mhm.
I don't understand. Surely there's a mistake. So then I asked my sponsor, what's the situation? Please send me the receipt so I can send it to my university. And to his surprise, he doesn't know anything about this because he's been pumping money into his foundation, but only to find out that the person in charge of the day-to-day operations embezzled the funds. So
Oh
now, yes, and 2 weeks before I graduated, they resigned. So now him and I are sitting there like, what on earth do we do now? So he distances himself because he just lost 500,000 rand. And I'm
no.
sitting there nagging him like, dude, I need to pay this amount in less than 24 hours because that's the time frame I was given to settle the amount. So he
Oh my
distances
gosh.
himself and says, look, I don't know where I'm going to get this money from. I can't help you. And I kid you not, I sat there in tears and I prayed and I more okay, let me not lie. I didn't pray at that point. It was more like a God, how dare you? I sat
Yeah.
there and I had a little bit of resentment because I had a conversation with God and said, look, you opened this door for me. You said I should walk through it, but now you're not going to see me through to the end. This is unfair. And I cried and I was really upset. And I remember speaking to my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, and saying, look, how did I come this far only to come this far? And I
Mm,
cried. I was in a pit of self-pity. And my husband looked at me and just said, yo, this is not the time to feel sorry for yourself. Like, get up, pray, do something. And then he leaves and he goes to work. And then I'm sitting there like, this dude, like, can you not like comfort me and we can cry together? He leaves and he goes to work. And I'm thinking, damn it, now I'm by myself. And then I got on my knees and I said, no, God, there's no way. It's you and I now. Let's go. Like, I'm holding you accountable to your word. You said that if you put me in a situation, you'll carry me through it. So carry me through it. And then it was laid on my heart that I need to put out a video on social media. And at that point, I didn't really have a big following. I probably had 3,000, 5,000 followers. And up until that point, my Instagram was Taz Fitness. I was this fitness girl. I never asked for money. My life looked like it was so well put together. And now it's laid on my heart that I have to surrender and go and ask for help. I
mm.
thought, oof, that was not easy for me. Hey, like it was a
I
back
can
and forth between God. Yes, and also we are raised as women of color to get like get everything done by yourself. You
imagine.
offer help, but don't ask for help,
Mm,
right? So this pride, I was
yes.
full of pride at that point. But then eventually, I even asked God. I was like, God, lay another plan on my heart, not that one. Like another one. I know I prayed and like you gave me an answer, but I don't want that answer. That didn't fly. So I'm
I
like, okay, you know what?
absolutely love, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I
No
absolutely
problem.
love, when you've got such a deep connection with God that you can have those kind of real life
Yes.
discussions with Him. And it's something that I discovered while going through my premature journey as well. And so I also love what a sense of humor God has. He's like, no, I said I'm going to
Yes.
show you, but now this is what I'm showing you, you have to do. So I absolutely love it.
No,
He has
100%
such a
because we can also,
sense of humor.
yes, he has a sense of humor and he knows how entitled we are. So
True.
we so entitled. We want to pray, but we want the answers that we want. And then we're
Mm,
like, mm-mm. And that's what I did. I was like, mm-mm, I don't want this one, God. God was like, girl, this is what you need to do it. And for an hour and a half, I was sitting on the floor thinking, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Thinking of a way out of it. But now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I can't go back to my family and ask for the money. They don't have it.
and the clock is
The,
ticking
and
as well.
the clock is ticking. Go, I have 24 hours. So eventually I put on my scrub top. I go onto Instagram. I record a 3-minute video saying, yo, guys, this is what's up. I recorded it in one take and that was it. I put it out. And immediately I felt peace and calm. And I sent my husband a message, my boyfriend at the time. I was like, look, everything is done. And he's like, what do you mean it's done? I was like, look, I didn't even tell him I put out a video. I said, look, God has taken care of it. It will be done. By the time you come home tonight, everything will be sorted. And he knows, like my husband knows, like when God and I have decided on a plan and our heads are aligned, it's over. Like the plan is executed. So then an hour, so at this point he doesn't know what's going on was. So then an hour later he calls me. And he says, Taz, I see this video of you going around. It's got 500,000 views. Do you know about this? Like, girl, what's going on? And I hadn't checked my phone for that hour, those few hours, and then I'll go back and I check, and it was so intense. And there was two things that stood out for me. One, my video went viral, and when I checked my fee statement, there were people that were paying 50 rand, 60 rand, 80 rand. I see the 1,000 rands, I see the 5,000 rands, but for me what stood out was the fact that someone had 30 rand and said, you know what, that's all I have, but I'm going to entrust it with you and I'm going to put you through school. And that was so intense for me because I was like, people don't even know me, but they trust in God and they were like, look, we have to put this kid through school. And that really, really stood out for me. And under my video, everybody started testifying about God's glory and how God's amazing, because everyone in South Africa just congregated and came
Mm.
together and they said, you know what? This is what we're going to do. And then in less than 24 hours, 500,000 Rand was raised. It was even 550,000 Rand. I had to go back on social media to say, guys, please stop. Like,
Oh,
we've made it. And it was so beautiful because that was merely by God's grace. People keep
mm.
asking me, like, oh, Taz, did people know you? Did you have a massive following? I said, no, guys, this was God. And it was so beautiful because he had to show up in such an extraordinary way so that when people try to make sense of it, they can't. They have
Mm.
to testify that that was God's grace. So, a long story short, because of the people that put me through school, that's why my name on Instagram is the People's Doctor, because the people of South Africa put me through school. Yes.
I'm listening to the story, and it's not the first time hearing the story, but oh my God, I am just as emotional now with you telling the story as I was the first time
Oh,
I heard it. Because it was, I think was the first time in a long time that, we were reminded about Ubuntu in South Africa. And it's something that I feel like we've
yes.
lost along the way. And so your story, yeah, it continues to move me. And I'm so in awe of what God is doing with your life and with your career, which we will get into further along. But one of the things that drew me to you was not just the story of the feasting, it was actually the fact that you two are a preemie mom. And I remember instantly reaching out to you on Instagram, wanting to get you involved in our nonprofit organization, Preemie Connect, but also wanting to give a safe space to the young girl who had to go through something so traumatic as having a premature baby. I mean, I was in my late 20s, and it's still by far the hardest thing I have ever had to do. So, how did you navigate that journey, and how has your motherhood journey propelled you into turning your life around and chasing your dreams?
I love that question so much. It actually scares me, this question, and a lot of there's a lot of things that don't scare me, but this does, because it takes me back to a
Mm.
very vulnerable space in my life. So, just to give you context, I only found out, oh, that's a tongue twister, that I was pregnant when I was 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So prior to that, I was playing soccer. I was super fit. My periods were always irregular. So I didn't think much of it when I skipped my period. And I was tiny at that point. So I didn't have a belly. Um, and I always joke up until this moment, I always tell my son, I'm like, look, I don't know where you hid. Like, I feel like you hid in my back because I didn't have a tummy at all.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and then at 6 months, when I found that I was pregnant, it was such a shock to my system. I was like, what on earth? I'm 15. I just felt pregnant. What am I gonna do?
Mm.
And just that just that in itself was scary for me. But I've always been one of those people, like, if something happens, I take responsibility and I will figure it out. Hey, obviously my family was very upset, very sad. But life happened between 6 months and 7 months. Like, I went through a lot of emotional distress, and then at 7 months I actually fell into labor. And I didn't know I was in labor. I just thought, oh, I just have a little cramps, like maybe my tummy hurts, I ate something bad. No, I was in labor. I didn't know that. um
Oh,
and then and it was so scary because no one's explaining anything to me. Everyone's panicked now when I fall into labor. Everyone's panicking, like, oh, it's too soon, but I don't know what they mean, because no one's taking the time to communicate to me. They just panic amongst themselves, like, at home. Anyway, we get
mm.
to the hospital. My water breaks. I'm bleeding. The doctors are jabbing me with these injections, and they're saying words like, oh, lung maturity, fetal distress, the baby's a premature baby. And I'm standing there internalizing everything and not
Mm.
understanding a word that's being said. But the panic that everyone was experiencing, I knew something was wrong,
Was
but no one
mm.
communicated it to me. And then I was rushed in. I had an emergency cesarean section. My mom was with me, and I'm so grateful for her. After the emergency cesarean section, my son was then in the NICU. But now for
Mm.
that week, so after the cesarean section, they just took him. I didn't see him. They just rushed him off, and I'm thinking, is this child still alive? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on? And then I didn't see him. So I don't. If you really know me on like a personal level, when something happens to me, like something traumatic, I don't scream. I don't vocalize it. I internalize everything. So I didn't even ask what was happening. I just sat there like, I guess someone's going to come and tell me eventually. And then the next day, they're like, no, your son's in the NICU. But now I can't walk because I just had an emergency cesarean section. And um, uh, because of how the private hospital was set up, they couldn't bring him into the ward I was in because he was still in the incubator. And, there was just a lot happening. So I couldn't see him. And now that I think for the first 3 days, I didn't see him and I was in so much pain. But I also there was emotional pain and physical pain. The emotional pain of, I don't know if he's actually okay. They keep saying he's alive, but if he's so alive and so well, why can't you bring him to me? And no
Yeah.
one can give me an answer. So I tried to mobilize as quickly as I could, like out of the bed to go and see him in pain. And then I remember going into the NICU. It was such a daunting experience for me. Firstly, there's just incubators.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, there's all these moms that look like moms. And I
Mm,
don't know how to put that. I don't know how
yeah.
to put that into words, but these people look like, you know what? They look majestic. They know how to breastfeed. They look old enough to be moms. And now I walk in there, this
Yeah.
15-year-old. I just underwent a traumatic operation, and I'm looking around and I'm like, this can't be life. So
Mm,
anyway, as I approach the incubator, I see my son and I just start crying because he's this little thing. He's under a kg. He's connected to all these pipes. His eyes are covered with a little like thing at that moment. I don't know what it was. It just looked like little sunglasses. And he just looked so scrawny. And I remember giggling a little bit and thinking, damn, I'm not that bad looking, but why does my son look like this? Not knowing that because he was underdeveloped.
yeah.
But then yes, and then life happened for that few weeks, and I remember just being so confused. I didn't know how to
Mm,
touch him. I was so scared I was going to break him. And they then did KMC, and the moment like they put him on my chest, it was instant love. Like I was like,
mm,
okay, you know what, kiddo, we're going to figure
you
this
got
out
this.
together. And just on yes, and just on that, like my mom was so upset that obviously I was a teenage mom, but the moment she met my son, it was love at first sight. And my parents were very, very supportive, and I thank God for my mom.
Mm,
But when she'd go to work, I'd still have to sit there by myself. And I remember the doctors doing like ward rounds, right? And this
mhm.
one doctor recognized, like, oh no, man, something's up with this kid. So he comes to me and he says, look, I've seen you for a few days. You look very uncomfortable. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, dude, I don't know how to breastfeed. I don't know anything. I'm scared. I don't know if my son's going to die. And then he started breaking it down for me. Like, no, waiting for your kid to be between 1.5 kgs and 2 kgs. Then we can send him home, but he's doing well. He's feeding well. The nurse will teach you how to breastfeed, but don't be too worried. So that ease and that empathy I received from that doctor then instilled
Made
a sense of hope.
yeah.
Yes, and I then knew that my son's going to be okay. And then that's when the love for medicine came in for me. And I was like, I want to do that for someone one day. When they're in a vulnerable position, I want to be their safe space. So that was my experience of being a preemie mom in a nutshell. I don't know why I keep saying a nutshell, but my nutshell is never a nutshell. But yes.
Well, I can just tell you, I didn't expect our conversation to be so emotional and sure, because like I can and empathize with everything that you have said. Because even though, there's a big age difference between when you had your baby and I had my baby, but like as you were describing it, the unexpected C-section, the not knowing if your
Mm,
child was going to survive, the not understanding the medical terminology, and not being prepared for what a premature baby looks like every single one of those things I can relate to. And I'm so glad that for both of us, it obviously has, opened up another door into helping people. And I love that because, one of the doctors that we first had was also a preemie mom. And I promise you that there's nothing like that, knowing exactly how it feels, what a parent is going through, to make the journey easier. Because sometimes we look at medical professionals as, they know everything, and we just have to follow
Mm.
everything that they saying or doing. But when you've actually been through that experience, I don't know, it just rings different. So yes, I feel for that
100%,
little
100%.
girl.
And just to add,
Yes, please, just to
so
add.
sorry, you were saying? You go first.
I feel for that little girl because I had also so much of support, us going through it. Like, really, I saw
Mm.
how my friends and family came to support us both physically, emotionally, all of that. And I think about how that little girl, in you felt going through that. So I'm so glad that you eventually did find someone that in the medical field that was there and able to explain things in a way that you needed to, because a lot of the time that's all us as parents need, is someone just to explain it to us in layman's terms.
100%. And as you're speaking now, it just takes me to another realization that it doesn't matter at what age you
Mm,
get a preemie baby, the emotions, the loneliness, the fear is still a human experience despite the age. And I didn't even know that a premature baby was a thing. And you know what I
mm,
mean? Like, no one growing up, no one in my family ever had a preemie baby. All the babies always were chubby and were healthy and laughing. So my first encounter with a preemie baby was my own. So that was horrific. That was terrifying because I had no preconceived idea, or I had no previous knowledge of what to expect. So everything was just so new,
yeah.
which
Mm,
added to the fear and the frustration. But yes, I think what you're doing and creating a platform where this can be addressed, because it is a trauma on its own. So to have
mm,
a safe space where moms can congregate and say, yo, did you also feel that? And then we
mm.
can relate on that point and not feel so alone. So thank you for this platform.
It's my absolute pleasure. I've come to find that peer-to-peer support it's its own kind of magic. It really, really is.
100%.
So you are still busy being a mover and shaker, and more more recently you've been in the media a lot again, and that's because you are involved in what I feel is a revolutionary movement, along with 800 of your colleagues. You guys are calling for the South African government to provide jobs for you. So, for those that know nothing about what's happening, which I find very hard to believe that nobody knows about this, do you mind giving us some more detail about it?
No, of course, 100%. So this year, when the year started, I was post-com serve. So what that means is I completed my 2 years internship, then completed community service, and then this year I found myself unemployed. Um, and I found myself unemployed with 800 other doctors, right? And a few weeks went by, a month went by, February hit, and I was like, guys, I don't think we're gonna get placed, hey? And it just seemed everyone was so stricken that they didn't even realize like we need to do something about it because they were so fearful. And it was such an unheard of thing for 800 doctors to be unemployed. So no one knew where to look for
Mm,
help, what to do. And then we came together and said, you know what, we need to do something about this. But everyone was a little bit nervous not to like challenge the government. And then I took it upon myself. I said, look, you know what, I have a platform, I might as well use it for the good. So I then spearheaded advocacy campaign. I didn't know where it was going to end up, but I was like, you know what? Change starts with dialogue. So let me create this dialogue so that people can start talking, and we can get somewhere. So then I started an advocacy campaign on social media. It was simply just to alert the public that, yo, you have 800 doctors in your country that are unemployed, because a lot of people didn't know about it at that point, and the media wasn't covering it. So I took it upon myself to say, you know what? I owe it to the public, the same public that put me through school. I owe it to them to inform them on what's going on. And then it started as an advocacy campaign with just dialogue, and then it moved to us conducting protests, like
Mm.
marches all over in different provinces. We also had one in Gauteng where we marched to the union buildings and handed over a memorandum of demands to the office of the presidency. And fast forward, we also staged a sit-in outside the Department of Health. So there was a lot of mobilizing that happened.
There was.
Fast
And
forward,
to see
yes,
so many health workers sitting for days
yeah,
outside
yeah,
of, like, my mind was blown. And I didn't see anybody coming to the party. I didn't see any of the
no,
powers that be speaking up, or apart from the promises that they made that they didn't fulfill. But while you
hmm
guys were sitting out there, I did not see not one of them come and say, look, we hear you, let's try and make this work some way, somehow.
no, 100%. And it took us so long to get attention, but the moment,
Mm,
and I think people underestimate, or rather the higher powers in inverted commas, they
mm,
underestimate the power of social media and when people come together. So the moment we started making a splash on social media, then everyone started getting a bit nervous, like, yo, people are starting to listen to these kids now. So that then
mm.
resulted in at least 400 of the doctors getting government placement, which is great, but it
Yes.
still leaves hundreds of doctors unemployed. Like now, we still have hundreds of doctors unemployed. Um, and for me, that's unacceptable. With a
Mm,
healthcare system as bad as ours, we need our healthcare workers. We can't afford to have trained professionals sitting at home while my Oma is sitting in a queue for 6 hours
yeah.
and those doctors are working 36-hour shifts at the hospital. It doesn't make
Mm,
sense. So I then took it upon myself to say, you know what? We tried the government route, we exhausted it. 400 is probably more than what the government even wanted to dish out in the first place. And I then decided, you know what, I need to get corporate South Africa and the private sector to stand up. We need to mobilize in that regard, or in that sphere, so that they open up opportunities for job creation for doctors.
mm,
And then that's when I'm now part of an initiative where we are offering affordable and accessible healthcare to under-resourced communities in the form of this like cloud-enabled backpack that screens up to 10 of the most common diseases. And you can do point of care blood tests, you can do a lot of things, and the patient gets the results in 20 minutes. Well, this thing is really cute. So even in our
it
backpack,
is.
we have a little Doppler, so a little fetoscope. So if we're in a rural community and the mom says, "Oh, I can't feel my baby move," we can actually put that on the mom and listen to see if there's a
Mm,
heartbeat, and that speaks volumes in our country, that because we have high maternal morbidity and mortality rates. So the initiative looks to that, and it takes entrepreneurship into account. So we're going to employ unemployed healthcare workers, take them, and then say to them, you know what, this is the skill set and the resources you need to become a successful entrepreneur. And we're going to help them open their own practice and run their own business. But
oh,
it also goes
wow.
far beyond self-employment. So the doctors then going to employ nurses that will work, they will work in a team and create an entire ecosystem that everyone can then earn money. So it's a whole thing. But yeah, it's a very ambitious thing, I won't lie. I'm considering the background of NHI now, but I do believe that God is so intentional, he's so faithful, and he
Mhm.
placed this on my heart. We'll have another conversation about that, but he placed this initiative on my heart way before this initiative even became a thing. And that's why when I landed on the doorstep of this initiative, it was just God. That was God. God
Mm.
just told me, Taz, this is where you need to go. And I followed him. And I said, you know what? Let me be obedient. And I do believe that this is kingdom work. Like, this is everything we're gonna do in this initiative is gonna be to glorify God. But yeah.
I look forward to seeing how it's going to grow, and yeah, to see our health workers out there doing what they are trained to do and what they want to do. I think that's the part that gets me the most, is that, the healthcare workers are saying we are here, we are ready to serve, and
Mm,
our government is turning a blind eye to that. And I mean, as somebody who has been using the government system, I've had all three of my kids at government hospitals. I have, and obviously through the work that we do, we have built relationships with different government institutes, and we see the strain that the healthcare workers are taking. They're doing the best they can with the little that they have. So to see that there are 800 saying, "Hello, we're here, we want to work," and
mm.
not being given that opportunity, it's mind blowing. So I'm hoping this initiative that you're on is going to blow up beyond what everybody even thought that it could be.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So you are also a teenage pregnancy prevention advocate, which makes
Yes.
complete sense. And speaking from your personal experience, like we were saying earlier, always has so much more of an impact, and it makes it more easier and safer for someone who is going through that situation, to speak about it. And there was a post that you did a while back that really resonated with me. And again, there are so many layers to teenage pregnancy. It's not linear, it's not one size fits all. Like, I don't believe any teenager wakes up one day and says, "Today's the day I want to fall pregnant." So, educate us as to what those layers are, and what do we do if we know someone, or if we are that little girl or that young girl that has found out that she's pregnant. And then again, what can society do? Because we always seem to be shaming the girl for falling pregnant, not realizing
Mm.
that, again, there are these layers, there are things that have resulted in this happening. What can we do, and how can we better support teenage pregnant girls?
I love this question. So, as you rightfully stated, teenage pregnancy is so multifaceted. And I feel as a society, we're doing it such an injustice by saying, ah, it's such a crisis, and then we move on from it. So we shame it, we stigmatize it, and then we look the other way. But I don't feel like people are taking enough time to understand actually why are we in such a crisis? What's really going on? So to unpack it a little bit, so access is a big thing. Access simply just to information. And
Mhm.
that starts at home. So parents are not speaking to their kids about even the reality of teenage pregnancy. Teenagers are sitting at home on Google, on TikTok, listening to other people speak about sex and contraceptive methods, but in their home they're not being educated about it. So they look to other forms of information sources to try and source this information. But I really think it should start at home, because parents need to come to terms with it. Look, whether you speak to your kid about sex or not, I hate to be this person, but they're
Yeah.
probably having it. So why not equip them with the knowledge they need to make informed decisions? For me, it's as simple as that. Inform your kids, create safe spaces at home, so that if anything happens, they can come to you and say, "Yo, mom, something happened." And then you guys can deal with it together. So just access to information, and then access to information in schools and in communities. So yes, we have life orientation, um, but it's so disconnected from the kids. It's like, oh, okay, this is the human anatomy. Oh, these are contraceptive methods, but they don't go into depth about the actual contraceptive methods and the side effects and how to make the right decision as to what contraceptive method to use. And they actually don't even take it a step further to say, look, in this community, your closest clinic is 5 kilometers away. When you go there, it's actually in your right to ask for contraceptive methods. Don't be ashamed. So that's the type of integration we need. We don't just need an LO teacher to say, oh, So there's a pill and then there's an injectable. No,
Yeah.
come down to the child's level and understand where they're coming from, because you can tell them there's a pill, right? That's available. But now for them, they're like, look, the only clinic that's there is a community health clinic and my mom goes there. So now she's
Yeah.
going to know that I'm having sex. Like, how can I navigate that? These are conversations that need to happen. If it's not happening at home, allow it to happen in the community or at school. So access to information is a massive thing. And then just the access to resources. So at clinics, some clinics, either they don't stock all the different types of contraceptive methods and then they enforce one specific way. Oh, you just take an
Mhm.
injectable because that's the only thing that's available. But they
Available.
don't take their time. Yes, they don't take their time with young girls. And youth-friendly services is such a lack in our country. If we
Yeah.
had spaces outside of clinics, uh, just hospitals or clinics, or like I said, NPOs that had youth friendly services that actually invite young girls to say, you know what, today we're going to educate you on teenage pregnancy and the different contraceptive methods and just create a safe space for them. That would be beautiful. And one NPO that actually does that very well is Kiredi. I used to work for them,
Oh,
but they do that
yes.
so well. Their target is actually, yes, their target is actually youth friendly services, so they tackle that very well. But the issue is there's not enough kiredis, it's not it's almost like they're the outliers, and that's the problem. Youth friendly services should be such a norm in our country, but it's not. So yes, for me, it's the access to information, access to resources, and then something that's so pivotal that I feel people just walk over so quickly is sexual violence. Like,
Mm.
people need to
Especially
understand
in
that that's such, especially in our country. And there's actually statistic by the WHO that says 1 in every 8 woman or girl will experience sexual violence before she hits 18. And if we can understand how significant that statistic is, we should then pay a lot more attention to that, because like I said, there's a lot of stigma around it, teenage pregnancy, there's a lot of shame, but we need to really sit down and understand that sexual violence is also a contributing factor to teenage pregnancy. So for a girl that's maybe sitting at home and she's not pregnant but wants to know more about contraceptive methods, I would say she needs to
Mhm.
take it upon herself to do the research about the contraceptive methods and just to understand that it's in her right to seek help and to seek just guidance. She shouldn't be ashamed for it, to just, and now I'm going to try and speak very carefully when I say this. She must understand that no one's going to come to her aid. And
Mm.
that's the unfortunate part. And it's the sad reality of the country we stay in. So I'd like our young girls to take it upon themselves and understand their agency, to say, you
Mm.
know what, I don't have anything to be ashamed about. Nothing. I want to actually take care of my sexual and reproductive health. So I'm going to actively find out what contraceptive methods are available for me, and I'm going to go to these clinics and I'm going to get it because it's in my right. And then
Mm.
for the young girl that is pregnant, that is very close to my heart because that young
Mm.
girl was me. um it's literally not the end of your life. It feels like the end of your life, but it's not the end of your life. You have nothing to be ashamed about. Everybody does, and I don't like to use the mistake because I don't believe in mistakes, but
Mhm.
everybody does things that other people don't like, or people label as taboo. And teenage pregnancy till this day is still labeled as taboo for various number of
Yeah.
reasons. But I'd ask that girl to just be gentle with herself, to just have patience with herself and understand that this is not the end of the road. For me, for example, I am not naive to understand that I'm a privileged teenage mom, because not everyone's going to get out like I did, right? But in my
Mhm.
scenario, my son changed the trajectory of my life. He saved my life. And I want teenage moms to understand that what they did is not, it's not shameful, and they just have to take ownership again of their agency and take take their dignity back from the people that
Mm.
that are robbing them from their integrity. And their dignity, because the communities we stay in is so riddled with shame. It's so
Yeah.
riddled with stigma that these young moms don't know where to go. They, it's not that they don't want to go back to school. It's because the school environment and the school syllabus doesn't allow for safe environments. It's
Mm-hmm.
because, you know what I mean? There's just a lot. There's a lot. Don't get me
There
started.
is.
My passion will, you'll feel my passion through this mic. But I would just say that it's not the end of the road. And I'd be more than willing to try and navigate that road with any teenage mom that feels that she's alone in it.
That is so beautiful. And then one more thing, as the parents of the child who is expecting,
Yes.
how can we better support our kids instead of shouting at them and screaming at them and making them feel like
Mhm.
they've done something wrong? Like the situation has happened, it's here now. Let's find a way to better support. I don't want to say a solution, to better support our child as they are now navigating this new journey.
That is also very close to my heart, because I feel the way it was done with in my situation was a bit opposite to what I would have done.
Mm,
Um, but as a parent that's got a teenager that's expecting, just understand that it's difficult for that teenager already. Like, her body's going through something completely different. Her life's about to change. She can't go and hang out on weekends with her friends like she wanted to. Just things are different now. So don't add to that stress. Try to create a safe space so that your child can actually flourish. My mom did that beautifully after I fell pregnant. My mom actually left work and took care of my son and said, Taz, you go and study further. You go fulfill your dreams. Again, I know that's a privileged stance that I'm taking, because not every family is like my family.
mhm,
But as a mom that's listening to this, don't make your child's life harder. Uh,
mm.
Contrary to popular belief, it's not easy. It's not easy to just be a teenage mom. So just create a support structure. Just be supportive, because now, if you're going to shout at your kid, you're going to curse at them, you're just adding stress to an already stressful situation. So just create a safe space, because the moment that child comes, you're probably going to love it too. So yeah, I think my parting words in that regard would just be to create a safe space, because it's such a difficult situation already.
Thank you so much for that advice. So we know that representation matters. And for people of color, especially that look like you and I, we know that in our community, we are not portrayed in the best of lights, I feel, especially in mainstream media. And so I want you to know that the little girl in me is so grateful for you. Actually, even the grown woman in me is so grateful for you. And I'm so sure so many other people out there just as excited and happy for you, showing us that regardless of our circumstances, regardless of the fact that you are a minority, regardless of the fact that society has given up on you, or that people already have a preconceived notion of who you are just because of the way you look, that none of that matters. You get to write your own destiny. So, for our listeners,
Mhm.
Doc, tell us again where they can find you on social media.
Okay, so on Instagram, it's the People's Doctor, and then on every other platform, it's just Dr. Taz Emran Thomas. And yeah, reach out to me. Let's have fruitful conversations. I'm all about connections and collaborations, and just sitting down and having meaningful conversations.
I absolutely love it. And with that, thank you so much, listeners. And you can see why we call her the People's Doctor. Once again, this is the Life, Love, Everything podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Taz. I am your host, Tasmin Bota.